Hello, I'm Luca De Giglio, and this is the Web3 in Travel podcast, where you can learn about crypto, blockchain, and how the new internet will change travel. Hey everyone. Today I want to talk about compliance because I think a war started in crypto. And this is a war which has been a long time coming. It was forecasted, at least I expected it. And the war is basically between governments and regulators and open blockchains. And I will start kind of giving you a background of what's happening, and then I will try to declinate this for the travel industry. And I'm gonna kind of think about how the travel industry will approach compliance. It's it's pretty complicated and it's very hard to forecast, but also I think it's really important to think about it from the beginning. Let's start from what happened. Well, many things happened in the last years in terms of compliance, but mostly blockchains have been accepted. Now, we haven't seen a full scale war against Bitcoin or even Ethereum. Companies have been able to build apps. I always go back to Uniswap, which built these fully decentralized smart contracts by being a company. So a startup basically built decentralized smart contracts. And by decentralized smart contracts, I mean something you basically build, you put it online, or more precisely on chain, and then it stays there forever, even if the company which launched it or deployed it ceases to exist. If tomorrow the SEC goes to Uniswap Labs, the company, and says, we don't like the fact that people can exchange tokens, stop everything you're doing, they can't. They just can't. What they can do is to remove the website, but people will still be able to use the smart contract. So I'm going to explain you this. I can't remember if I did it already, but these are very basic concepts in blockchains, so I'm going to repeat it. But basically, the first main concept, which wasn't possible before blockchains, there are apps nobody can stop. So the only way to stop the Uniswap smart contracts is basically stopping Ethereum. But that's not even true anymore because now they are on Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, and Silo. So they are on many, on these 4 chains at the moment. They could be on many more in the future. So the revolutionary, if we want, concept is that there is unstoppable code, unstoppable programs. Again, we can stop everything. We can even stop Bitcoin as long as we have consensus. But to stop Uniswap contracts, we would need to stop the whole Ethereum network and these other networks I mentioned. And still, even after doing that, being open source, anybody could take this code, deploy the contracts again, maybe on different chains, and there you go, you have them again. So the metaphor, the analogy I've used in the past is like you create a new kind of seed, maybe for tomato, and you release it in nature. Once it's released in nature, good luck taking it back. Same goes with a virus, same goes with bacteria, etc. So we have unstoppable code today in the world. We haven't thought through this enough for sure. It's something new. So let's kind of interiorize this concept. Somebody can create some code which nobody can stop. And I think this is every government's nightmare because governments tend to work by controlling and regulating. And when there's something you can't control or regulate, well, it's difficult to understand how they wouldn't react to that. Now, something happened, as I was mentioning last week, and that was that a developer of an app on Ethereum has been arrested in the Netherlands. And this person was a developer, one of the developers who built the app. the app is unstoppable, so the app is still there. And while we don't know the details, it looks like his crime is that he built the app. And that's a first. Nobody has ever been arrested, as far as I know, for building an app. You can be arrested if you do an app or a website which does illegal things. And this arrest comes from a new ruling of the AEC, which is the Treasury's Office of Foreign Asset Control, which is basically an American agency, which put the address of the contract on the list of sanctioned individuals. So it's a bit something new, because normally you would put individuals, and now they put basically a piece of code. What does Tornado Cash do? Tornado Cash allows you to take your ETH, put them in Tornado Cash, and get them clean. Basically, if I want to send you $100 in ETH and I send them from my wallet, you will be able to see how much money I have in that wallet. And then you will be able to follow through all the other addresses, and basically you could reconstruct my whole financial situation on Ethereum. Or even worse, if you are, if you're using this very advanced software like chain analysis, you can actually basically see everything I have. So some people say, I want to actually use it, I want to send it to somebody for perfectly legal reasons, like I want to make a donation, but I don't want everybody to know this is me, and I don't want everybody to know all the money I have. So they go through Tornado Cash, and they clean it, and they send it. So some will say, well, you shouldn't have, secrecy in money, and some will say, no, you should have it because cash has been around forever, and societies didn't collapse because people use cash. Cash is anonymous and is private, right? When I give you $100 or €100 in cash, nobody knows, nobody has to know, and that's how society has worked. So let's remember this before we go ahead. Privacy is normal. We've been living with privacy forever, and non-privacy, so this surveillance state we are getting in, is not normal and is actually very dangerous. Now, I'm not here to convince you about that. I know there's been a lot of, I would say, brainwashing in the last decades to say that everything we do has to be seen by the state, because we probably forgot what the state and what governments are able to do. But I don't want to get political. So basically, you have this service which allows you to erase or kind of make your money more like cash. And of course, like cash, it's been used by criminals, and especially probably North Koreans, which have stolen money from many projects in crypto, and they use the service to clean the money. Now, it can be argued that this is not money laundering, because after you've done that, you still cannot spend it. You have to transform this into fiat, and before you can use it in the real world. Still, what happened is that it looks like first of all, an American agency overstepped their boundaries. They actually couldn't do that to code. They can only do this to persons. It's a very complicated legal matter, and we're going to read about this in the next months. But what I want to say here is that they stepped up their war against crypto, especially against like private crypto. A first reaction in the whole DeFi space is that many apps have kind of self-censored. They started not accepting any transaction from addresses which interacted with this Tornado Cash app, and even those who received money from the app, which is kind of difficult to justify, because somebody, for instance, said, okay, if the rule is that somebody gets money from Tornado Cash and the address they got it to is now unusable, okay, I'm going to send 0.1 ETH, it's about $200, to many addresses. And they did it. They started sending this money from Tornado Cash to unsuspecting addresses who never used it. But because now they got it, now they are tainted. And that was made as a way to prove that it's not a fair system. Right? If I've never touched Tornado Cash and I've always used it in the most compliant way, and somebody uses it to send me something, now I am also attacked, and I cannot use my wallet anymore, or that address in my wallet anymore. So, okay, that was the introduction. I don't want to talk too deeply about that, but basically, again, the tension between privacy in crypto and compliance is now much stronger. The feeling around there is out there is really bad, because this guy was just a developer. He thought he was building some privacy app for normal people, and now he's in jail and nobody knows what's going to happen. Maybe he's the next Julian Assange. Maybe he's the next Edward Snowden. Who knows? On the other end, the whole crypto space is now finding ways to reduce the surface attack against privacy. Now, we're talking about travel. Travel is not finance. Travel is not trying to reinvent money, etc., etc. Travel is just, is an industry, and we are looking for better ways, more fair ways to manage this industry online. So the first reaction could be, well, we don't really care about this, right? Travel is compliant, it's clean, we do everything following the law. Why should we worry about that? And that's what I'm trying to think about. Is it really like this? And I don't think it's really like this. Let's think about this from the point of view of innovation versus compliance. And let's start from Airbnb. Now, whether you think Airbnb was something good which happened to the travel industry or something bad, you will read this in a different way. But Airbnb wasn't compliant. Airbnb started illegally. They're trying to sell rooms in New York. You may remember that, right? And New York had very clear laws. You cannot sublet your room or your apartment for less than 30 days. And yet Airbnb went in with the, if you want, the typical arrogance of Silicon Valley, which is basically capital versus governments, and said, we don't care. And by doing that, they basically broke the law, but at the same time, they innovated the space. Again, in your city, Airbnb may be a net negative or a net positive in your life. It's really personal. Now, by following the law, we wouldn't have Airbnb. Actually, by following the law, we wouldn't even have the internet, to be fair. So what happens in Web3 if we want to be 100% compliant? Well, probably when you try to be 100% compliant, you can't really innovate. So there's always been this tension between the existing laws, so the things you can and cannot do, and the innovation, which always goes against those laws, right? If it's too much compliant, you see no innovation, you see stagnation, you see no opportunities for people, and you see the companies and the people who are on power will stay there forever with horrible products like, AT&T, which has been disrupted by, or in general, the telecommunication sector, which was charging us a lot of money for international calls, has been disrupted illegally by VoIP, and which Skype and then the whole internet took over communication. And today, because of these illegal actions, we have free calls, free video calls, free messaging. So I think we need to remember that you need to do illegal things to innovate, because the legal framework is against innovation by default, right? And on the other hand, if you have no rules and everybody can do whatever they want, then you have probably chaos, right? You have innovation, but people get hurt, etc. So the early crypto space is a bit like this. Total Far West. I think we are still in the Far West in a way, which makes it very, a very dangerous place to be. Again, the metaphor of the new continent is very apt. If the more west you went, then the more dangerous it was until the sheriff arrived, right? So, and until those places became more under the rule of law, okay? But it began very, very wild. But in that environment, you get innovation. So the ideal situation seems to be like a constant battle between compliance, so following the law, and innovation. And then innovation cannot, by default, wait for compliance to adapt. You cannot wait for a law to come up and say, okay, let's regulate, for instance, short-term rentals, let people rent their own apartments. If you wait for that, in 20 years later, you're still there and you still have only hotels in New York and it's $500 a night and there's no alternative. So innovation starts, takes risks, breaks the law, and the law has to adapt. And in general, everything is like this. Without breaking the law, we wouldn't have votes for women or freedom for homosexuals and many of the things in our society which we today consider an advancement of society. They were illegal before. Even democracy was illegal. Democracy was completely illegal even to talk about it in during the monarchies, right? We had to cut a few heads to go to democracy. So how is this going to affect travel? Well, again, I think there's going to be a tension. And there's going to be cases in which we go a bit too far and the regulator will fight against this. We've seen what happened, for instance, again, with Airbnb in San Francisco. At a certain point, it's been made illegal or regulated. And in every city of the world, we had different things. Now, the point is that there's a new innovation which brings value and at the same time disrupts some things. And it tends to disrupt two things. It disrupts bad things like monopolies, like maybe the monopoly of hotels in New York. And it also disrupts the order and the fairness. Like, for instance, I don't want to have Airbnbs in my building because they are actually reducing the quality of life. So there's not an easy answer. But in general, innovation, if managed and regulated well, brings advantages for most people or for the society in general. But it cannot thrive under a completely compliant environment. So I'm arguing here, Web3 in travel will bring new advances by not being compliant by default, because that's how technology changes society. So technology goes fast, the society follows, regulation follows, and hopefully regulation becomes, understands the technology and allows the innovation and takes out and makes impossible or makes it hard to actually harm the society at large. This is a general, tension in everything, in artificial intelligence, for instance, right? In blockchains, in crypto, in Bitcoin. So how are we going to approach this in Web3 in travel? I think in the same way. So if we see that a smart contract can, or a set of smart contracts can improve travel and make it more fair for everybody, even if the law doesn't approve of it, you do it anyway because you hope that the law follows up. Now, another problem with compliance is that we don't have a one world government. We have over 200 countries, and in these countries there are sometimes states and then cities. Now, how are you going to be compliant with all of them? It's basically impossible, right? What is legal in a place is probably illegal in the other. So if you're building a smart contract, which, to go back to the point I introduced at the beginning, which is completely independent from you once you build it, how are you going to build a smart contract which only works in some countries? This is by default impossible. So what the regulators probably should do is to say, okay, that smart contract is illegal in your country. I can't ban the smart contract, but I ban the use of it. So if, let's say, there's a decentralized direct booking service, right? Sorry, smart contract, which allows any hotel to accept cryptocurrencies through an escrow, for instance. And one country says, we don't want this. What they are going to do is to maybe fine people in that country who uses it because they can't ban the system. In the same way, in this example, Airbnb is being very decentralized because some countries ban Airbnb, some cities ban the Airbnb, but you can't really ban Airbnb itself. It's just a website. It's out of your jurisdiction. It's on the online, right? So what you do, you ban people who use Airbnb hosts, and you go after them. So even if the protocol layer, so in this case Ethereum or other blockchains, or the apps are completely decentralized and out of your government's control or your city control, you as a regulator, you can still stop behavior which you think is unfair or illegal by hitting the people who use it, right? So it's not like, oh, we build smart contracts which are immutable, nobody can change them, the world is going to end. No, I mean, it's like we have cars. Cars are used by criminals. You're not going to ban cars. You're going to catch the criminal. Yeah, it would be easier to completely ban cars for everybody, and criminals won't be able to use cars. Because if you see one car on the street, it's a criminal and you stop. But we know this is not something which makes any sense. But in what we're seeing today in crypto, and what we will increasingly see is like ban the car, ban the new technology, ban it for everyone, because there is still not enough understanding of the good use cases for it, right? It's just criminals doing it. That was the beginning Bitcoin, right? It's just for criminals, so let's ban it. And the same thing is maybe going to happen in Web3 in travel. That smart contract is not compliant, so let's ban it. And let me reiterate the fact that compliant is a very charged word. Compliant by for whom, right? In general, in the West, is compliant by the United States agencies, which say this is illegal, and then Europe follows, the whole West follows through, and we are following the United States laws on the financial system. But already now we are in a more multipolar world. Whatever is banned in the States and in Europe will not be banned in China or Russia and other countries, and vice versa. So global compliance is a myth. It doesn't exist. You can't do things legally. You can do things legally in your own country, maybe, because then you have states and cities. So it's a journey for us to understand how to deal with that when we build these apps. But today, my position will be, you know what? If I think this smart contract can be used by people and make their life better, we just do it. If you don't like it, well, ban people in your city from using it. It's like you don't like the internet to have pornography. Well, you're not going to stop the internet or stop pornography. You know, if you think it's fair or if you think this is better, just ban pornography in your country or ban the whole internet. But the danger of banning the whole internet in your country is that you are removing your country from innovation. Yeah, you are letting pornography in, but you're letting the whole internet in too, and you have to kind of see the advantages and disadvantages. So, from our point of view of people who are thinking, okay, what can we do on Web3 which makes sense in the travel industry, which makes the travel industry actually upgrade to a new internet native system, we shouldn't really worry too much about that. Now, worry too much about that doesn't mean that there's no dangers, because if you build an app which then one of these American agencies deems illegal, you may go to prison. They have no problem in overreaching beyond their legislation. So it doesn't mean let's do whatever we want. We can just, there's not going to be consequences. It's like there's no way you can build something compliant for everybody. Build it by considering the risks. And in general, because we are in the Western, or at least I'm in the Western world, before building an app which can, attract the attention of some overreaching American agencies, I'll think twice because I don't want to go to prison, right? And we are now in a nascent Web3 in travel environment where we start having experiments and ideas and things. And I can guarantee you, if we had to sit down with lawyers, any one of us building these things, if we had to sit down with lawyers and say, is this legal? They will go like, well, if you want it 100% legal, wait for a clarification. And then nothing would happen. So people who build in this space are taking some risks. Even if they are well-intentioned, you have to appreciate that risks are being taken by builders. And those who will actually attract any, negative reactions are trying to bring you things you can use and things which can improve your life. So we should appreciate anybody who's building anything in this space because they're taking the risk for all the others. Now, let's go a bit more into detail in the travel industry. What are the smart contracts, or basically the apps, which can bring value? One which keeps coming back to my mind is a payment system which accepts cryptocurrencies and also offers escrow. So, I'm a hotel, I'm a villa manager, I'm an apartment manager, whatever I'm doing in travel. I want to accept cryptocurrencies because they are growing. And also, I want to have an escrow system, which makes me a bit more similar to an OTA in the sense that I can offer more trust by default, and people can book directly to me without having to trust me, right? So, this is the trustless concept. Now, what can I do? Oh, look, there's an open smart contract somebody built. It's just out there. It's processing, I don't know, $1 million a day. Okay, it looks safe. I'm gonna use it. So I take, a snippet of code, put it in my website. Now people can choose between paying with credit card or with crypto. Now, if you take this smart contract, which again, that's what it does. People can use the smart contract to pay. The money gets in the escrow, and then one day after check-in, the money is sent to the hotel. Okay. You take these features and you go to a lawyer and you say, is this legal? The lawyer will say no, because there's a long list of permissions you have to have, like, a payment processor, for instance. And then there's a long list of rules, like how to deal with money, etc., etc. There's no way this is legal. So are we going to wait for every country in the world to say to write a law on smart contract payments? Yeah, you could do that. Maybe 10 years from now, we're still without any payment smart contract. So, or you do it and you say, okay, I'm not going to profit from it. I'm just going to write the code and put it online, and anybody who wants to use it can use it. And that will allow the industry to have an alternative to the credit card system, which is in some cases better. Now, an Iranian uses it, and boom, Iranians should not be able to use money because they are sanctioned. And then the smart contract has facilitated, going against the sanctions. And you see how there's no way this kind of app can be fully compliant. It's just impossible. So the choice is, again, shall we try to do it and make everybody's life better, or shall we just not do it because some big powers don't want you to do it? And that's a personal choice, of course. Now, if somebody builds that in today's environment, they will probably build it as an anonymous person, like Satoshi Nakamoto, put it online and make it completely free with no fees, with nobody earns anything. It's just a piece of code which allows people to do things. And once it's out there, it's out there. And again, governments and regulators and law enforcement should take not the lazy approach, which is ban the system, ban the app, but the proper approach, in my opinion, which is ban people who are using this software in illegal ways. So maybe a way to understand or to analyze this is to consider a fact. Web3 allows people to build systems which are illegal or not compliant or not regulated, which were not even possible before. Like Airbnb was able to do this, let's say illegal or aggressive thing, which was, just do something even if it's against the law, because you have behind you basically the power of Silicon Valley, I would say. You have the billionaires behind, right? Maybe that was their approach. Or maybe it's cultural, break things and do things, and then, they follow up. Now this is getting stronger because you don't need anymore to be from Silicon Valley. You don't need anymore to have behind you the investors. You can be an anonymous kid in somewhere in India and build a booking system in a completely anonymous way and don't fear consequences. So people will do more and more non-compliant things in travel. We will see apps we couldn't even conceive before because no startup will take that risk, especially related to payments. Okay, because payments, even if you are Airbnb, even if you are Uber, the payment system, you're forced to use credit cards, you're forced to use the payment system, and you have to be compliant. Otherwise, they will not process your money. Even these big companies have to be compliant on the payment level. They could be completely non-compliant on the, let people book apartments and rent apartments. Even if the city is against this, they could not care about that, but payments they have to. You can't accept payments from Iran or maybe Russia now, right? This is changing Web3. The amount of illegal things which can be done is much bigger if you use cryptocurrencies. So we will see apps you couldn't even dream about before. And some of them will be great. Some of them will be completely legal. Some of them will be harmful. We're going to have the whole spectrum. But that's another way to kind of reinforce the point that Web3 is going to bring innovation, because even the young developer in India can do things not even Airbnb or Uber could think about. And Uber is even better than Airbnb in this example, because Uber has been completely disregarding local regulations, in the name of innovation outwardly, but actually in the name of making money, because Uber is a VC-backed company, and what they have to do is to grow and make money for their investors. They didn't care at all about any local regulation. This has been so clear and blatant that we cannot even discuss that. Still, they have to follow the rules when it comes to payments. Now this is changing. With cryptocurrencies, you don't have to follow the rules anymore. You, builder of the app, don't have to follow the rules anymore, because you can be anonymous, you can be far from the reach of the law, and you just can build something which is going to be online, on chain, even after you disappear, right? So we will see a lot of innovation in payments, simply because before payments, or let's say now, fiat payments have to follow the law or they won't be processed. With crypto, they can be processed anywhere. Anyway, there's no law which can stop them at the protocol level, at the app level. Of course, they can be stopped at the user level. Again, somebody in Barcelona, I don't know the situation in Barcelona today, but let's say Barcelona has banned vacation rentals completely. Somebody uses Airbnb. Airbnb decides to ban, gets out of the city, and they're not going to let you use the platform. Or let's say that Airbnb still is in the city, but the credit card companies or the American system says, no, don't do this in Barcelona. Payments will not go through. Or Airbnb decides to go to Iran. Of course they won't, but payments will not go through in Iran. Now, if it's a Web3 system where people use cryptocurrencies, well, nobody can stop it, especially if it's done properly on a decentralized blockchain, etc., etc. Does it mean that now Barcelona is going to be filled with vacation rentals and they're going to destroy the market again, and it's going to be a mess? No, you just stop people from renting on this new system at the apartment. Tourists go to the apartment. You stop them, you ask them what they're doing, etc., etc. So there are ways for law enforcement to regulate even stuff which is happening on Web3. But again, they have to do the job of regulating it at the city level where this actually is happening. They cannot have the lux to simply sit down and sit back and say, okay, you can't use the system, and block the system. So the world will not end because we're going to have permissionless systems for travel. Okay, so this was like me thinking about the problem. There was no structure in this episode. I just started thinking about this a bit more deeply. For now, my position is, let's just innovate, let's play, and I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be legal problems at the beginning, because it's very small. Usually, the legal problems come later when it becomes actually impactful. So for now, we can still experiment with these technologies quietly and without worrying too much. If we hit the jackpot, if we are lucky and we actually are able to build something consequential, which is actually impacting, hopefully positively, people's lives, well, then we can start thinking about the legal aspects. In the meantime, more advanced verticals like finance are now in this tension, in this war, and these will certainly give some kind of framework for travel on Web3. In general, travel is not a very adversarial system. People want to be compliant. People also want to innovate. So we will have the tension, but nobody's trying here to be completely, against the law because the law is too restrictive. Like in finance, like the fact that money is being basically controlled by central banks, and the financial system, at least in the West, has become a political tool managed by the United States. We don't have this kind of situation. Travel is much more decentralized as an industry. People want to be compliant. They want to have a small, medium, big business. They don't want to fight the law. I don't think it's going to be that adversarial, but at the same time, when you see an app or a set of smart contracts which can really make things better, and the law says no, you can't do this, then we're going to have a tension. So this episode was an attempt to start thinking about this. I'm sure we will discuss these things more in the future. It's certainly going to be interesting as everything else in Web3. So let's see how this goes. All right, this is the end of today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. For more insights on Web3, follow me on Twitter at tripluca, TRIPLUCA, and see you next time.